According to the George W. Bush Institute, immigrants enter the United States with dreams of a better life for themselves and their families. Rather than posing a threat to our democracy, they reinforce and enrich the values that make America the country it is, reinvigorating the labor force, enriching the cultural fabric, and making the American democracy stronger. Voluntary large-scale migration from the Caribbean to the United States began in the first half of the 20th century, following the end of the Spanish-American War of 1898, when a defeated Spain renounced its claims to Cuba and, among other things, ceded Puerto Rico to the United States. Since then, the Caribbean has historically experienced large-scale incoming and outgoing migrations. Today, the region is subject to fluid internal and external movement of people that migrate because of various reasons, including, but not limited to, business or economic opportunities, study, joining family, human rights, government stability, escape conflict, persecution, terrorism, or human rights violations, while others move in response to the adverse effects of climate change, natural disasters, or other environmental factors. Immigrants from the Caribbean have contributed significantly to the United States' population growth and cultural development, as a colonial settler civilization and Caribbean countries send the most immigrants to the United States. As of 2020, the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UNDESA, reported that 9.08 million Caribbean migrants lived outside their home country. In 2020, the U.S. had 4.5 million Caribbean immigrants, according to Jane Lorenzi and Jean Batalova's Migration Policy Institute MPI report of 2022. This was 10% of the United States' 44.9 million foreign-born immigrants. In this presentation, we will give you a countdown of the top 10 Caribbean countries people are moving from to live in the United States. Plus, we will outline some of the reasons for leaving their ancestral homeland. Some of the data in this presentation dated back to 2019, just before the COVID-19 pandemic, according to statistics from the Migration Policy Institute. Number 10. St. Vincent and the Grenadines. There are just over 18,000 migrants from St. Vincent and the Grenadines currently living in the United States. The economy of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is heavily dependent on agriculture, being one of the world's leading producers of arrowroot despite a major decline in the industry. With a tourism-based economy, the COVID-19 pandemic had already harmed the country's economy as travel slowed to manage the pandemic. The eruption of the La Soufriere volcano on April 9, 2021 was terrible for this little Caribbean country, as it spewed massive amounts of ash, dust, and smoke that led to the evacuation of thousands of residents, most of whom won't be returning home anytime soon. Number 9. Grenada. Over 19,000 Grenadians immigrated to the United States, most of whom settled in northeastern cities. Grenadians emigrated to the U.S. for various reasons, including improved economic conditions and living with relatives. Grenadians acquire jobs or attend schools in the U.S. after leaving Grenada. Some Grenadians seem to live mainly in the Philadelphia and Washington, D.C. area. Number 8. Dominica. The United States and Dominica have long had a good diplomatic relationship since the country attained independence from the British in 1978. There are currently 36,000 immigrants from Dominica currently residing in the United States. One major event that caused mass immigration of Dominicans was the political insurrection of 1979, which caused several citizens to flee the country due to fear. The nation is also witnessing environmental changes, such as hurricanes and tropical storms that pass over the island, frequently displacing masses. Dominicans move to the U.S. in search of better opportunities, most of whom are settled primarily in New York, Florida, and Massachusetts. Number 7. Bahamas. Bahamians were the 7th highest immigration group from the Caribbean in 2020, with over 40,000 Bahamians living in the U.S. Early in the 20th century, Bahamians were among the first West Indians to settle on the mainland of the United States. Many immigrated to Florida to work in the agricultural sector, or Key West's fishing, sponging, and turtle hunting industries. The dire economic environment, lack of prospects in the Bahamas, and the proximity of the Bahamas to Miami were the leading causes of increased Bahamian migration. Number 6. Barbados. As of 2020, there are approximately 65,000 Barbadians residing in the United States, placing them in the 6th position as one of the most significant immigrant populations from the Caribbean. The majority of Barbadians can be found living in the states of Alabama, Alaska, and Arizona respectively. A range of social, political, economic, and educational factors motivate Barbadians to journey to the United States. Most Barbadian Americans promise to return home as quickly as possible with their spouses and children, yet they all come to improve themselves. Young children, frequently left behind with grandparents, other family members, or strangers, experience significant emotional stress when their family is split up. This is especially for children who grandparents leave behind. There are a considerable number of Barbadian Americans who enter the workforce with professional and technical qualifications. Others choose to further their education by enrolling in professional schools, colleges, universities, and trade schools to acquire the education and skills necessary to compete successfully for the numerous professional and technical positions across the country. Number 5. Trinidad and Tobago. The immigration process from Trinidad and Tobago to the United States began as early as the 17th century, took place in spurts, and is most efficiently studied in connection with the other waves of Caribbean immigration. As of 2020, around 213,000 persons of Trinidadian and Tobagonian heritage live in the United States. This number ranked them as the 5th largest Caribbean immigrant group. Pursuing better employment opportunities is the principal impetus behind their decision to leave their countries. Most people from Trinidad and Tobago move to the United States believing they can obtain a better education. People from the Caribbean often move to the United States in search of better job opportunities in the major cities of the United States, such as New York, because the region's unemployment rate is also relatively high. Number 4. Haiti. 705,000 Haitians currently reside in the U.S. as of 2020. Many Haitians have lived in the U.S. for decades. The Duvalier dynasty, an autocratic family dictatorship in Haiti that lasted almost 29 years from 1957 to 1986, violated political and human rights, prompting Haitian migration. In addition to the many Haitians who died or lost their homes in the 2010 earthquake, Hurricane Matthew displaced tens of thousands more, and Haitians are just looking for a break. The assassination of Prime Minister Jovenel Moïse in July 2021 contributed to an increase in Haitians leaving the country, and border crossings have steadily increased. COVID-19 eased border regulations in 2021, making it more straightforward for migrants to move north. Number 3. Jamaica. The number of Jamaicans who emigrate to the United States from Jamaica makes up the 3rd largest share of all immigrants from the Caribbean, totaling approximately 775,000 in 2020, even though only about 10,000 Jamaicans moved to the United States between 1960 and 1965. Many different socio-economic circumstances in Jamaica contributed to the country's emigration to the United States, including economic hardship brought on by the lack of economic diversification and a scarcity of professional and skilled occupations. These factors sometimes make it difficult to find work in professional and skilled trades, which means there are not enough opportunities in the economic sphere. There is a steady increase in the recent inflow of immigrants from Jamaica to the United States to reunite with family members who had previously relocated. Most of these immigrants are coming to the United States to study and seek employment or business opportunities. Number 2. Dominican Republic. Dominican immigrants are the 4th largest Hispanic group in the U.S., behind Mexicans, Salvadorans, and Cubans, and the 2nd largest Caribbean group. People from the Dominican Republic have a greater naturalization rate than other foreign-born immigrants, with over 1.2 million immigrants currently residing in the United States. Since the assassination of long-standing dictator Rafael Trujillo in 1961, the number of Dominican immigrants has increased significantly. After Trujillo's death, dissidents, students, teachers, and middle-class laborers came to the U.S. via embassy visas and assisted programs. Later, Dominicans included low-income and working-class individuals fleeing the Latin American economic crises. 57% of Dominican immigrants were U.S. citizens as of 2019, compared to 52% of all foreign-born immigrants according to the Migration Policy Institute. Several factors have contributed to Dominican immigration over time. The first prominent immigration from the Dominican Republic was driven by political and social upheaval. People who opposed or feared the 1965 rule and those fleeing violence in the 1960s fled to the U.S. Even when the political atmosphere improved, Dominicans continued to depart. 99% of Dominican immigrants get legal permanent residency in the U.S. through family ties, becoming the spouses, children, or parents of U.S. citizens or other family-sponsored favors. Legally working in the U.S. is the best way to get permanent residence and a green card. The Dominicans stay in traditional neighborhoods. 44% lived in New York, with 28% in the Bronx area. New Jersey 16%, Florida 12%, and Massachusetts had the most Dominicans, 8%. The U.S. offers economic growth and stability potential, a significant draw for immigrants. Before we get to number 1, we would greatly appreciate it if you would give this video a like. If you find the information in this presentation useful, please click the like button below. The number 1 largest population of Caribbean immigrants living in the United States, with over 4.5 million immigrants, is from the island of Cuba. Since the 1960s, the U.S. has favored Cuban residents and made it easier for them to get permanent status. The Cuban Adjustment Act, which took effect on November 2, 1966, allows Cuban natives and citizens who have lived in the U.S. for a year to become permanent residents. This fast track to permanent residency in the U.S. has contributed to the large migration of Cubans to the U.S. The largest waves of Cuban immigration have historically coincided with economic upheaval and deterioration in the country's standard of living, mainly caused by the U.S. embargo on the Caribbean nation. The COVID-19 outbreak has worsened the island's economic and humanitarian crisis, which hasn't been this terrible since the 1990s. Despite excellent vaccination rates and a drop in COVID-19 infections, Cubans continue to leave in huge numbers. This is due to dwindling resources, medical supplies, and civil unrest. Once a thriving private enterprise, remittances and travel have been restricted by the U.S. since February 1962. The Cuban economy fell 11% in 2020 due to currency reunification, and inflation reached 71% the following year. The United States of America is a country created and built by immigrants from all over the world. All Americans are descendants of immigrants, yet the country seems too often to have a tempestuous relationship with newcomers. While each successive wave of immigration adds to the unique blend of cultures that define America, we all came to these shores to freely worship, express ourselves without fear of government retribution, and chart our own economic destiny. This does not mean we forget where we came from. Rather, it is because of our past that we so passionately embrace many of the American values. It is because of us as immigrants after centuries of continued migrations that the United States is as strong as it is. Share your thoughts below on the content of the presentation. Please like, subscribe, share our channel with others, and turn on the notification bell for our next video. This is J-irie Caribbean.